Hey everyone, welcome back to the Old Music Matters Net podcast. I'm your host, Brian. Join me today is another guest hailing from the land down under. It's Nate from the band Order of Owls. Not the Court of Owls that plagued Batman, or I guess is that where the inspiration comes from?
We got that quite a lot. It's kind of inspired by that. There's like a secret fraternity of dudes that have been around for like ever. They kind of help each other and do stuff. It's kind of like they're kind of like Freemasons sort of things, but we liked the kind of thing that they get up to is mirrors the stuff that we do with each other. So we just kind of used it as a joke one day, and it just stuck. But let's just go with the Batman story. That's more cool. That's much more cooler.
Yeah, I guess. So you guys fans of Batman by any chance?
Singer is more than anyone else. I've played a few of the more recent Arkham series of games, which were just fantastic, especially City. But yeah, he's got Batman stuff everywhere, all over his house. He has the figurines, he has the games. Occasionally I'll catch him using the Bruce Wayne voice. When he's having one of those identity crisis days.
I guess he was playing Alfred at that point.
Look, that's usually probably me. Yeah, pretty much like behind the scenes, I'm doing everything for the band anyway. So I'll take the Alfred role.
That sounds good. Actually, they do at times make Alfred look like a real badass because I think it was Injustice where they actually made this like little pill that gave him like the powers of Superman, like real briefly. So it gave him like super strength and like maybe hardened skin or whatever you want to call it. And he literally beat the crap out of Superman. So
wow. Okay.
Yeah, Alfred's a badass. And may Kevin Conroy, who did the voice of Batman for the animated series, may he rest in peace. It's a shame we lost him a little too soon there. So
yeah.
But it's good to see you guys are doing well, I guess. How you guys doing out there in Australia?
Look, it's pretty good. We're, being upside down all the time, you kind of get used to it. No, it's good. Yeah, we've, the rubber hit the road a few months ago with the band. Though we've been at it. Myself and the singer Tim have been at it for going on to 5 years now. But it's only been maybe the past 6 months to a year that we've really taken it out on the road and played live, released songs, all that kind of stuff. We really took our time with it. We wanted to just make sure that we were kind of mentally prepared to do all this all over again because being in a band is tough. Like there's no such thing as an off day. There's no such thing as downtime. You stop, everything stops. So it's been an interesting experience getting out there again in the context of a band, and especially in my position being the PR guy, having interviews, chatting with people, talking about the band. That it's still something that I'm getting used to, but the response that we've had to the past to the 3 singles that we've just released it's been far beyond what we were expecting. The first single kind of did as well as we thought it would. It was an introduction track, we'll call it. But Speak Up and What Becomes, has seen a lot of traction very quickly. And we didn't really, especially I didn't really know what to make of that. I was kind of like waiting for the penny to drop that something dodgy was going on, but no, people are just listening and sharing and spreading it around. It's pretty good.
That's very good to hear. And you get to elaborate more on Order of the Owls just in a moment too. But I guess first off, which part of Australia are you hailing from?
So we're from Melbourne. It's southeast. So just above Tasmania, if people know where that is. Like you got Tasmania, Bass Strait, then Melbourne. It's often labelled as the world's most livable city. I would say that's pretty accurate. I've been to Shanghai, I've been to Hong Kong and stuff like that. Those cities are absolutely massive with lots of things to do. But Melbourne you would have a hard time. It's not the biggest city by far at all. It looks like a toy when you're looking at Hong Kong and then Melbourne. Like Melbourne just looks like a toy, but it's a very good toy. There's lots of things to do, lots of hidden artifacts all around the place. I've recently been finding a lot of them through the mobile game Pokemon Go, which is kind of a weird way to just to explore your city a little bit more. But hey, it works. Also, we're better than Sydney, and anybody that says differently is just plain wrong.
Amen to that. It would be nice to get to Melbourne one of these days. We have not been to Australia yet, and I think we always keep eyeing on New Zealand because we were real big into Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit series. So
yeah,
so that always seems to be first on the list, and then we eventually work our way over into Australia. So
right on, yeah.
And actually, first, oh sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say everything in that kind of area, like geographically speaking, Sydney, Melbourne, New Zealand, Queensland, all that, anything kind of in that sort of area, you can go to any of them and have a lovely time. You just can't go wrong. They all have their beauty to greater or lesser degrees, but they're all wonderful places to visit.
Yeah, that's for sure. And you can't go wrong with the rugby either, especially since they treat that like a religion over there.
Yeah, it's more of a Sydney thing. In Melbourne, most people tend to follow Aussie rules football. It's a bit hard to explain if you've never seen it before, but it's basically kind of like American football, except there's no armor and people try to tear each other's heads off all the time. It can be pretty brutal, and most of us just watch it to see who's going to get into fights.
Oh, they allow the little like hockey fights we see on the hockey rink and everything too. Everyone drops the gloves. Let's drop the helmet and everything too. Let's dish it out, man.
Like that, yeah. When something fair enough happens on the rink, and one player cracks the shits at another player, and then helmets down, they start smacking each other, technical fouls, all that kind of stuff. We do have hockey in Melbourne as well, which is pretty awesome. We have a hockey league that seems to be doing pretty well, and the few times that I've gone, there's always been fights at them too. So, it's sports just brings out the best in people, doesn't it?
Clearly, they'd be like, "Are you having a bully day? I'm having a bully day. Are you having a bully day? Can I get a bully? Bully!" Oh,
That's
thank
exactly
God we live in this town.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Actually, who was I talking to before? When I guess before you came on too, because we were trying to get the whole time difference down, and like we just couldn't make it work originally. Yeah. Who was it?
That would have been Johnny, our bass player. So he's been dipping his toes into the PR side of things as well. But when it comes to organizing time zones, then it's, as far as I know at the moment, it's just going on to 11:00 p.m. Friday night over there. Right now it's a Saturday afternoon for me. So I'm used to time zones and keeping all that kind of stuff in mind. If somebody says EST, then I pretty much know what time it's going to be over here. But Johnny's, look, he's a super charismatic dude. Super charismatic. He had his first interview, a few days, sometime during the week. And just listening to him back, just going, wow, this guy's never done an interview before. He's really, really good at it. In the band chat that we had afterwards, our drummer Ramon's just like, as anything that comes up past here, Johnny's got to do it. He's just an ace at it. But it's just, I guess it's just the mechanics of things. Got to get him trained up a little bit more on, so that's you're not trying to say, well, what's this time for me, what's that time for you, and blah blah blah. You're just like, okay, let's just pick a time zone and work with that. That's just the way that I generally do, and I always work with other people's time zones because generally speaking, it's easy enough for me to be like, okay, you're in EST, that's 13 hours behind, okay, blah blah blah, set it in the calendar, then just go on with the day. But Johnny's a really good dude. One of the most fortuitous finds in a musician that you could hope for, really.
I will say, I'm not losing my mind because I've actually interviewed 200 bands out of Australia already. We'll go shout out to Kathleen Turner Overdrive and Celestial Burial. Got both of them up on Spotify. So, Yeah, and shout out to both of them, by the way. So it's good to see they are doing well. And
Can I look them up?
did you look them up? I guess. What's your first impression of them?
Oh no, I'm going to have to look them up. I haven't really heard of them, but we have. You're in Canada, is that right?
No, I'm in the States.
In the States. Sorry, you did tell me that near Philly, right?
It was the city of Pittsburgh. So
Yeah, Pittsburgh. Sorry.
close enough.
Yeah, it's a little bit. Australia is a little bit different when it comes to bands and geographies and stuff like that. We only can really live on the outer edges of the island itself. Like that's the only place it's really habitable. But you go anywhere else inland, it's just impossible to live there. So we have a high concentration of bands in on the eastern side between the three major cities. We have like this massive concentration of bands, and it's really hard for any of us to kind of get ourselves out there. There's just, I wouldn't say it's competition, but there's just so much going on that's it's kind of like staring into a headlights with one little red LED and saying, "Can you pick the red LED?" Whereas from what I've been led to believe in the US, like you do have like tons of cities and stuff like that, but anyone can live almost anywhere in the US. It's not like there's this big dead patch in the middle that's just sunburnt and dry and crazy. But there's plenty of places to visit. There's probably heaps of saturation, but bands can move around. They can get themselves noticed, that type of stuff. There's always there's a little bit more freedom to. I don't like using the word compete, but there's a little bit more freedom to compete, I suppose. A little bit more stage to share.
A bit more competition. Yeah, I can see what you mean too. So. And actually, I got to elaborate more on the music scene because we could tie that into COVID a little bit later too. But so Nate, I want to welcome you to my podcast right here. We're actually already a couple of minutes into it already, so hopefully we didn't bore anybody out of our conversations already. So,
and if you are bored, then sit down. We've got a lot more to talk about.
Strap yourself in, folks. We're in for a long night. All right. So
grab yourself a tea or a coffee, chuck some honey in it, and listen to the smooth, sweet sounds of Nay and Brian.
All right. So actually, let's go ahead and start with the first question right here too. So I guess let's start with you in general too. I guess how did you become a musician, and then I guess how did you get together with Order of Owls?
Okay, so man, that's a question. How did I become a musician? I will try to keep this concise. So back in the day, back in school, like I'm in my mid-30s now, but back in school, I wasn't really a very communicative or popular kid. I always just had to find my own way, find my own fun, find my own things to do. And was introduced to music from a teacher that just happened to know how to reach kids like me at the time that didn't kind of fit in anywhere else. And he got me messing around with some guitar, with some chords, some this, some that. Started a high school band. We played really horrible, grungy kind of stuff. There was like bar chords, and it was just awful, angsty stuff. And over the years through the woods, I just never stopped learning. I went from using a computer, one of those old school computer microphones to record whatever, to having my own studio and just a stupid amount of gear. And now lately I've been getting into like sound work. I don't know how popular he is over in the States, but next month do you know who Shannon Knoll is?
Shannon Knoll?
Yeah.
The name does sound familiar, I guess. Which band is he a part of?
He was actually a winner of Australian Idol in the early 2000s, and he's still touring the country. He's still doing his thing. But yeah, next month I'm taking up the mantle as his monitoring engineer. So that's pretty big gig for me. And that's going to be 3 days of just setting up, packing up, making sure nobody's blowing their eardrums out. But yeah, look, to tie into everything else, it's just been one big process of somehow not quite failing, but failing forward. Like all teachers say, when you first get into music or learning an instrument or something like that, at first you're going to suck, but the longer you spend at your craft and doing whatever, the better you're going to get at it. So, yeah, eventually, at first I just started off as just some kid that was just messing around with the crappy acoustic that was falling apart. And yeah, in the past, let's say 10 years or so, I've toured nationally. I don't know how many times. I've done Japan, done China, got arrested in Hong Kong for something that wasn't my fault. It really wasn't. It was just visa complications. What else? Got to tour with so many just huge bands in the metal scene. So you're In Flames, Soilwork, Trivium, At the Gates, Winter Sun. Like, it's one of those things where this coming Wednesday I'm playing in another band. I'm playing in a band that's supporting Atreyu in Melbourne. So that's a thing. But yeah, that's kind of how I got started and how I've kind of rolled into it. But as far as owls go, it was kind of unexpected. It just started off as a thing between myself and, between a couple of mates who asked if I can come in and play bass. And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. Come in. We started talking about it. And that particular incarnation of the band didn't have any more meetings beyond that. So it was a different drummer, different other guitarist, myself and Tim. Pretty quickly, that other drummer, or the initial drummer, just kind of dropped off the map. We went through several, and I met Ramon when I was playing in another band briefly, and he and I, as far as music goes, had almost exactly the same ideals, technical experience, all that type of stuff. We just pinged off each other something chronic. So, yeah, I asked him if he wanted to be a part of Owls, and he accepted. It's been happy days ever since. The other guitarist, Rob, kind of dropped out at some point. He was just, kids, family stuff, got married, all that type of stuff. It just, he had too much on his plate. So he dropped out. He had to drop out. And we've still been tight ever since. We still get along with each other. We still talk every now and again. He's been stoked with how the band's going. Really, like, he's just one of the best cheerleaders from the sidelines that you could ask for. He's just a great dude. And with Johnny, he came over to my house once when I first met him, he came over just to buy some PA speakers, and we got to talking. Again, we had similar ideologies on things. We had similar experiences. He wasn't anywhere near as technically proficient as the rest of us, but, he's one of those people you meet, that he has a massive heart on him. And yeah, just on the basis of that, I'm just like, you want to give it a crack? And yeah, he's like, sure. When it came to recording the first 3 songs, he did all of them in one day. And compared to like everyone else, it took him 2, 3, whatever days he had. He was the strongest. He was the strongest in the studio. And this is a dude that kind of just does it for fun. So I really couldn't be more proud of it. Like, he's one of those dudes, you throw any task at him and he excels at it. He excels at it with a smile. And as like the rest of my origin story, I just kept on finding myself falling into differing roles. So I ended up being the dude who's like the de facto leader, I suppose. I kind of set the path that we're going to walk down and maintain some quality standards of, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, how we're going to communicate with each other, and blah blah blah. Also do all the recording, all the mixing, all the mastering, most of the production. Some of it involves Ramon as well. He is an excellent drum engineer, and I don't think at this point I'm capable of getting out of a drum kit what he can put in. So, yeah, he kind of dictates the pace of what things will sound like just by his engineering skill. And the longer things go along, the more I keep finding myself being thrown into all these odd little roles. So yeah, doing PR, doing interviews, like moving to guitar as well, programming all the stuff for live. So we have a couple of backing tracks, just shakers and sub drops, some other extra guitar parts that I just can't. Yeah, I can only play so many guitar parts at one time. But just like little ad lib things, effects, blah blah blah. I spent a lot of yesterday doing that, and yeah, that's me and how the band itself got together. And yeah, ever since then, it's just been a lot of finding ourselves, really, like who we are, how we fit together in this band, and how we can make it work. Because as I said, we're all in our mid to late 30s. A lot of the guys have kids and stuff like that. Myself and Ramon don't, but the other guys do. And we're all on different levels of figuring out how to make it work. And as stressful as that is, as much pressure as it does put on some of us, including like very much myself, like the band is a daily thing for me. It does help to propel us forward to find who we are, how we do things, and helps to reinforce our values and how we present our vulnerabilities to people.
Yep, and that's an extensive story with a whole lot to talk about there. But every time I hear like something was like, I was going to say something with Idol, or like you think of American Idol at first. So I was like, did Australia just want to copy us or something like that? So I'm curious about this Australian Idol. Can you talk about that real quick?
Yeah, that's fine. It's just the Australian version of it. So Australia tends to what tends to happen a lot from what I can glean is there'll be a lot of shows in America, say American Idol, American Gladiators, all that type of stuff. A lot of those live reality-ish TV shows, they will import those to Australia because it's very easy to put together, I suppose. It's very easy entertainment, and people love a good success story. So especially when you have people like, say, Guy Sebastian, who was just some nobody until he kind of got on Australian Idol. From there, he just kind of exploded. But what happens over here, it's the same thing that happens over there. It's just, in my opinion, I'll use the phrase cheap entertainment that people can get around easily. And just because it's like, when I say cheap, I'm like, not financially, it's just, it's an idea that worked in one region that transfers over to another quite easily, so they did it. That's not.
They flag it for copyright.
Oh, absolutely not. No, it's as far as I know, it's created by the same people that run American Idol, which that same group does a lot of the US TV shows. Some of them are US based, some of them Australia based. Like, do you remember the show Mythbusters?
I do a little bit. I think I've seen a couple episodes, but yeah, were they originally from Australia, or did they do a little copy version?
No, the show itself is presented by Americans in America with American people and blah, blah, blah. But the production company that actually funded it and put it together was an Australian company called Beyond Television. And it's the type of crossover that kind of happens with media in general. There's a lot of toing and froing of ideas. Sometimes, like, say, in the instance of Mythbusters, it was an Australian idea that was presented best by Americans. But then when you have things like American Idol, Australian Idol, and all the other idols or gladiators or something like that, it's very easy for those companies to for the companies behind those productions to franchise those shows out to different countries because it's just easy to do. Same thing is happening with the show Taskmaster in the UK, where we have the Australian version of Taskmaster. There's the New Zealand one. They tried to do an American one, but apparently that didn't go so well. But it's the same kind of thing. Alex Horn's production company is behind putting all those shows together and making sure that they're all at a particular standard. So they're not. It's less ripping each other off, just more globalization of a particular idea.
So I picture American Ninja Warrior becomes Australian Ninja Warrior or something like that.
Have that. We do have that. Yes. Yeah. A friend of mine was one of the recurring characters in it. Mikey. Yeah, he was one of the main dudes, and man, some of the stuff that those guys can do is just insane, just intense.
You just say it's mostly arms too. Like it seems like you got to do a lot of pull-ups and everything too, just to even try to hang on. To like sometimes it's like little balls hanging there. And you're just trying to like do a monkey climb or something like that. Something like, boy, I don't know if I would last that long. In fact, that was kind of my excuse to get back into the gym recently because I think I just got out of college and obviously put on a little weight because I was done with football season. So at the time, I was going to watch this show, being like, you know what, I'm going to give that a shot just to see what it's like, but not really coming around to it right now. I haven't been very good at it, to say the least. So
it's just one of those things. You chip away at it a little bit by little bit, and as long as what you're doing in the gym aligns with the values that you have, then you'll be successful. And this goes with anything. As long as whatever you're doing aligns with the values that you have as your core values as a person, then anything that you set your mind to, you're going to be able to accomplish.
Yeah, that's for sure too. Though I am interested in your story with getting arrested in Hong Kong too, and then you can talk about some of the bands a little bit too. So let's start first with your little stint in Hong Kong there. I guess what happened.
Oh gosh. Okay, so this was with a previous band that I was in. We were playing a couple of shows in China with some good mates of mine in the group Insomnia. And yeah, we did these China shows. It was Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen, and like 3 completely different cities, 3 completely different worlds. It was an incredible experience. What we were told at the time is Hong Kong was part of China, and if you have a Chinese visa, then, well, what's stopping you from coming into China? We thought that was fair enough, but we were also told a caveat, which was, if you do get stopped at the border, just say that you're on holiday or something like that. And we thought that was a bit strange, but we didn't really think too much of it because, you just do what your promoter tells you to do. It's not. I think that was the first mistake, not asking more questions about it. Anyway, we go to cross the border. We hand in our passports, and then we're told to go to drive our vans near this white building. We're like, okay, cool, whatever. Be ready to have your stuff inspected. And we're like, okay, well, we've got like 2 or 3 vans full of equipment. We're going over a border. Fair enough. Like they're just gonna want to inspect things. So we get there. After maybe 5 minutes or so, we're greeted by a whole bunch of just military staff in uniform. I can't really go into too many specifics about what kind of equipment they were holding. I am under an NDA with that in particular, but we were escorted. How would you say? We were heavily encouraged to walk with them into their immigrations, customs thing, whatever. And we're made to sit in a room. We weren't in the jails, but my knee was resting on the jail bars. I'll put it that way. Like it was like we were so close, so incredibly close. But we just told sit in this room where next to where the bars are, stuff like that. we'll come back for you. And we're just left in there for like 3 hours to stew. We're just like, we don't know what's going on, blah, blah, blah. One by one, we're all kind of eventually pulled into a room, and they're just smiling. They're so polite, so nice, whatever. How come you're here? What brings you to Hong Kong? Blah, blah, blah. We just say, well, we're here for a holiday. We played some shows in China. We're just here to eat food and go shopping and have a good time. We're like, okay, cool. Have a seat. So we sit down. Another 40 minutes passes. They bring us in one by one again. This time there's a tour poster on their desk. They're like, okay, is this your band? Yes. Okay. Is this tour date address in Hong Kong? Yes. Okay, so you were going to be playing a show in Hong Kong? Yes. Okay, why did you say not? Well, you weren't before. We're like, oh, that's just what we were told to say by whatever. Like, okay, cool. No worries. Have a seat. Another hour and a half goes by. We get pulled in yet again. This time there's a blank sheet, just a blank A4 sheet of paper and a pen. And they're like, they're explaining to us, look, and this is with a smiling face, like so super polite. You're not to play the venue. You're not to go near the venue. If you do go there, you will be arrested. You will have to face court. You'll have to come back to Hong Kong on your own. Like, you'll have to come here yourself. But yeah, we're banning you from going to the venue. We're like, okay. Now, we're going to make you write out your own contracts as well, stating that you're here to go shopping and to see sights, and that you're a tourist, and that's it. We're like, okay, sure. So, we have to handwrite our agreements, sign it. They sign it, give us a copy. Then they send us on our way. Now, the thing that was kind of so bizarre about that is at the time, Insomnium had two other members that were touring with them. Sorry, one sound guy who wasn't in the band in an official capacity, and a guitarist who at that time hadn't yet joined the band. He was just a hired gun. All of us were pulled into those rooms except specifically those two. They didn't know who they were. They're like, well, we don't know who you are. You're fine. They were looking for the members of my band and the official members of Insomnium. They were specifically targeting us on the way in. So we were basically just told, you open your instrument case, you're in trouble. You're in big, big trouble. And apparently, like the week before at the venue, there was an Australian band that had played. They didn't get the same warning we did. They were just let into the country. They played the show, but during the show, they got raided by Hong Kong police. They were actually arrested and detained, jailed, whatever. They were let go, but then they had to come back to Hong Kong like several months later and face their judicial system. And yeah, it was a wild time. Now, the cool part of it was, we went over there to obviously to drum up some presence to gain some publicity, like as you do. But what kind of was cool about that is we had some we just thought they were like college students at the time, ask if they can come to the hotel and do an interview with us about what happened, being detained or whatever. We're like, yeah, cool, whatever. We didn't think much of it. And apparently later that night or early the next day, it was filmed on some major network, and we got a lot of press out of it. And it was just so bizarre seeing that kind of stuff while in the country. Like, we're just a bunch of, I'm just like, right now, I'm just some suburban dude going from that to being known in Hong Kong as that band that got arrested for some political crap that was brewing at the time that came to pass, in 2018 or 2021, something like that, where it all kind of really boiled over and China was like, nah, Hong Kong is now China. It was super bizarre. It was so bizarre. I don't recommend it. It was a fun experience, but man, I do not recommend it at all.
Needless to say, the promotion guy got fired afterwards. Be like, what the hell, man? Or something like that.
Well, we didn't really know what to make of it. It was just so blindsiding and confusing. What we did get out of it though is like they did give us a I think it was like a week visa, like a tourist visa that we weren't allowed to work on or do anything. But we got to go around Hong Kong. We got a free hotel room that was like super high up. We found where they kept the booze there. We had a good time. So yeah, we ended up just getting super trashed in some hotel room for no reason in Hong Kong. It was great. It was actually a really good time. And of course, like a dickhead, I ended up pulling my bass out of the case, like when we were really not supposed to. But before I kind of realized what was happening, I was like jumping on the bed in my underpants playing bass. Before I was reminded, hey, you remember what they said about our instrument cases? Oh yeah, I should put it back, shouldn't I? Of course they didn't check the cases or anything like that. They just wanted to scare us a little bit, and we were scared.
I mean, shit, I'd be scared too. I'd be like, okay, what's going on here? I mean, we're not going to put some internment camp, are we? Or something like that.
Oh, look, you don't know yourself until you've been arrested.
Oh,
That's when you find out. That's when you find out who you really are. So, look, I'm grateful for the experience. I think it was fun. It's just it's a fun story to tell. Wouldn't recommend it, but like if you find yourself in any sort of position like that, then just do what they tell you to do. Be honest. That's all I can say.
I mean, that's what you expect when you get arrested by any sort of police, let alone military police in this case. So, I mean, like, just tell them the truth and then let's just walk away. Peacefully.
Exactly. So, especially when you're in another country, because you don't know their practices, their standards, their rules, their whatever. Just be very careful. That's if I ever have a promoter say to me, "Oh, just say you're on holiday," the first thing I'll say after that is bullshit. I will never fall for that ever again.
That's what I'm saying. Needless to say, you fired the promotion guy afterwards, or you guys. It's not like you. I would say after that, I would get confrontational, be like, "Dude, what the fuck, man? We just got arrested at the border." I mean,
it wasn't my department at the time, so I just the powers that be, I let them sort it out, and I just had a chuckle about it. Like there really wasn't much else I could do. So it's just one of those things. If you can't laugh about it, and like I don't know how many other people can say that they had that type of experience with what is essentially the Hong Kong military, and be treated so nicely about it. So I'll take the feather in the cap. Why not?
I mean, in this case, instead of the Florida man, we call it the Australian man sort of incident, because I don't know if you noticed, but
Florida man is the legend.
Well, there's that, but there's always the little crime spree that always happens, like in Florida too, where people just do these fucked up sort of crimes too. I mean, I think there was one guy who was like naked at a palm tree, and when they tell him to get down, his balls practically drag against it too. So I mean, like, there's probably a little blood on the palm tree.
Oh man!
And that's not even the worst of it too. I mean, if you look up Florida man and what day your birthday is, I think they'll tell you a specific crime that happened like on your birthday. So
let's do that. Let's find out. Like let's see. I won't say when my birthday is, but Florida man, birthday. Like in the year as well.
I don't know. Just it could probably work, but I guess hopefully it doesn't hit the screen off too. But
okay. I'm just gonna go with the first one. Actually, the first two. I'm going to go with the first two here without just putting in the date, like the date without the year. The first one is Florida men, one dressed in. Oh, actually, it's both the same one. So, Florida men, one dressed in bull onesie, attempt to burn down house with ragu.
You see what I mean? We're all fucked up in some sort of way.
How do you burn a house down with ragu?
I mean, you're high on something too. I mean, if you're thinking, we'll just burn it down.
It's not that person's first radio, and that was definitely a bull pun.
I mean, it was something too, but I know I interviewed one guy out of Florida. He's actually more on the rap and hip hop side. He basically told this long story where like he's just dealing with like his sister, and she's practically schizophrenic or something like that too, and like She's ex-wife too. I'll give a shout out to QT Louis. So I recommend you check out that interview too. So
That done.
all right. So we at least got the funny stuff out of the way too. So that's all good. But I guess to get back into Order of Vowels.
Plenty more stories. Don't worry about that.
Well, you get to elaborate more a little bit too. Maybe you could do it for this one here. But I guess how would you describe Order of Vowels? I guess what genre are you guys? And then if you want to elaborate anything else, go ahead.
Yeah, cool. So it is like it's kind of a painted by numbers band to a degree. So we're very careful to we're all fans of different types of music, but where we actually land as a group is I'd say alternative rock, but a whisper of wind in any direction would either be heavy rock or heavy metal. It really depends, or psychedelic. Like we don't really ever get pigeonholed too much, and I don't really think of a particular genre or style when we're putting together songs. There's definitely a unifying criteria behind the songs, but copped a lot of things like alternative rock, heavy metal, psychedelic, shoegaze. We just incorporate a whole bunch of different elements and try to make it as accessible as possible without it being generic. So I'd say maybe Pearl Jam meets David Bowie meets Primus, maybe.
Something like that too. It was a little bit heavier, and I don't know how heavy Primus normally went too, but I kind of see the Pearl Jam a little bit too. Maybe more so lyrical wise, or how your singer kind of approaches his vocal style too. So yeah. I can see that.
Like, say in particular with Primus, the album, say Anti-Pop, how they kind of went more nu metalish for around that time period, like late 90s kind of thing. So I suppose it's more of a late 90s kind of feel with some nu metal injected. I guess that's kind of what we're aiming for, but in saying that, we don't really have a specific aim either. It's just be engaging and try not to use the same tropes too often.
In other words, we improvise, that sort of thing too.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like that's a good way to put it. We do, like, say with the latest single, What Becomes, there's a whole big ass bridge section in that where it goes super psychedelic for a while, which that doesn't occur in any of our other songs that have been put out yet. That was all just something that was improvised during the writing process, and it stuck. The original version of that song was quite different. That was the bones were written by Tim, but as most things go in the band, I kind of had a look. I had to listen to it and my first thought was, well, this doesn't sound like an Owl song. How do we bring some of those elements in to make it one? And it shares a lot of similarities, say, with Free Domination. In there's a lot of just bass and drum section, lots of guitar ostinatos, guitars taking on more of a rhythmic role rather than lead. But there are leads splashed all over the place, especially in the psychedelic section and towards the end, where we have a mate, Jake, just shredding over the whole ending of it. Which that wasn't exactly how we planned the song to end. It was going to be a fade out, but when he came back to us with that solo, we're like, nah, just a straight up stop. That just sounds great.
Are you more of the rhythm guitarist, or do you also pitch in your solos every now and again too?
At this point, I am the only guitarist. So I do rhythm and lead. So the leads that you hear on Free Domination and Speak Up, that's me. The whole psychedelic section of What Becomes is me, but the last solo on What Becomes is Jake. But yeah, I'm more of a rhythm player, but I can play leads. I'm kind of like I see a lot of similarities in the way I play with I forget his name, the dude from Linkin Park. I'd rather play things that are simple to pick up, simple to learn, and catchy, rather than shredding and being virtuosic. I can do all that kind of stuff, but like we already have Steve Vai, we already have Joe Satriani, we already have Yngwie Malmsteen or the dudes in Prolific. We already have so many people who could do so many incredible things with the guitar. I just want to make things that are fun, and ripping out the super complex part of my repertoire, it just isn't required. It's not something that I really need to bring across, so I don't. I write for the song and write to fit in with everybody else. I'm not playing to be a particular, order of hours plus Nathan or order of hours plus, shredding and stuff like that. It's just all part of the sound. I just want it to be simple and accessible, and more than anything else, easy to pick up and play for people who are getting into the instrument. So I do consider us to be more of a gateway band than say a legacy band. So I think that we are the type of band that you would listen to if you're looking for an entry into the heavier style of music.
Yeah, I can see what you mean too. And I think his name is Paulson. I think that's his last name, from Linkin Park. I'm hoping I'm not getting confused with a drummer name. I think it was one of those two, but I can always see his face. I just always forget what his last name was.
So Big Delson, he wore those headphones all the time.
Yeah, and it was like, yeah, it is right. He did wear the headphones all the time. I was trying to think back to some of the concerts I saw live when I was watching it on YouTube and everything too. So yeah, you are right. He did wear the headphones too, I guess, which I guess was a good thing too, because music gets loud up on stage there. So
yeah, it's a unique look for him too. Like visually, it is pretty striking, especially for the type of music that they were playing. It fitted with their aesthetic.
Yeah, that's for sure. But I guess, would you say he's your biggest influence, or do you have many others? I know you mentioned a couple when we were talking right there with like Yngwie Malmsteen, all those other guys.
My influences, oh man, my influences are actually not any particular band per se, but engineers, audio engineers. So I'm heavily inspired by the work that Andy Wallace does. So what he did with, in particular, Nevermind, Nirvana, like that's just the types of tones that he got on that were just incredible. The drums and stuff like that. And it wasn't just because they were recording at Sound City. It was because of the stuff that he was doing, the experiments that he was willing to put in. Yeah, there's him. There's a couple of the other Sound City guys, to be honest. I forget his name, but he did a few Ghost albums, and Nick Raskulinecz. He's just, I love everything that he's ever done. Who else? Gosh. Lord,
Put him on the spot, yeah.
Lord Algie, Tom Lord Algie. I like the tones and everything that he comes up. I don't like his mixes, but I do like the individual elements that he comes up with. So the reason why I point to the engineers rather than any particular band is because nobody has ever heard what a guitar sounds like in the room, or what drums sound like in the room, because what does in the room sound like? Does it sound like the room at Sound City? Does it sound like my bedroom? Does it sound like where you're at now? In the room doesn't make sense. All we ever hear as consumers of music is what comes after putting the microphones in place, capturing, processing, creating the textures that we end up listening to. And that's why I find more inspiration there than I do anywhere else, because it just takes the right engineer with the right taste in sound to really bring out the magic in music. I brought up Nirvana before. Nevermind sounded like a wonderfully polished product. It was tonally, everything was where it should be. It was clinically amazing. It stands up sonically to this day. And then you look at In Utero, which, relatively speaking, is not polished. It's very rudimentary, very raw, very whatever, but it ends up being perfect in its own way because it was the band in the location that they were trying to capture what they sounded like there at that point in time. And that's also a great thing. If they did Nevermind Part 2 instead of In Utero, it would have sounded like garbage. Or if Nevermind sounded like In Utero, that too just, it wouldn't have had the success that it had. So that's where and why, like, the sounds of the songs have a particular sound. That's the sound that I've chosen. It's not too clean, not too polished, but it also kind of fits in that arena as well. But we've had plenty of feedback saying that it's not, it's a little too raw, it's a little too this, a little too that, or blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, cool, well, you got what I was aiming for. I'm glad, because I wanted it to sound like a band in a space. I didn't want it to sound ultra processed, or I wanted it to have its texture, and that's what's most important to me.
I'll say I got the damn job done. That's how you should have responded, really, whenever you think about it.
Well, look, there's many ways to slice a cake, and the way that I chose to do it with these three particular songs was doing what I felt was the right thing at the time, and listening to them back outside of the context as a producer and just a consumer, I'm like, this sounds sick. This sounds like exactly the kind of band that I would like to hear. We've started work on the next three songs, with the next three songs that we'd like to release, and we've recorded the drums in a completely different way. Instead of just having two overheads, we have three. Instead of just a mic in the kick drum with a sub kick on the front, we've actually put another kick drum in front of that kick drum and put one microphone at the very end of that to make a big kick tube. And it's kind of like the sound of that sounds like it EQ'd itself. I didn't have to do anything special to make it sound like the way I wanted. It just sounded the way I wanted because it was the sound. Yeah.
I was like, we worked our little magic. That's what I was doing right here. So, like I said, do you run? I'm sorry, I was gonna say, do you run your own studio, or I guess what do you guys do?
Well, studio is a loose term to put it, but I do have a creative space. So it's just a bedroom thing at the back here, but I do have a crap ton of outboard gear. I run a lot of analog compressors, EQs, desks and stuff like that. So I'm running event opals and Fostex monitors. There's proper soundproofing and treatment and whatever going on in there to make it a great environment to mix in and to create a soundstage in. But generally speaking, when it comes to recording drums or something like that, I have a location mixer that I use for live shows that we'll just use that in a rehearsal room that's insulated well enough from other places, and go from there. So we have a collection of spaces and equipment that allows us to do things that I would think that most bands wouldn't even think to do. Like, you can record yourself, and you can do a damn good job. And you don't even really need to know particularly what you're doing or be too anal about where you're putting microphones and stuff like that. Just know what sounds good and pick what sounds good at that point in time, because that's what you're working with. And that's just what we generally work with when it comes to anything, be it live, be it studio, be it somewhere in between. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, the rise of home studios really helped out too, because I've been rolling with actually this Focusrite Scarlett 18i20, which it may seem a little bit excessive because maybe not at the time, because at the time I was looking to try to get into recording and that sort of production as well. So I feel like, it makes sense. Unfortunately, it never really came to fruition. We now got to the podcasting side where I only need one input really, and then just the little USB cable in the back right there just to plug into the computer, and that's how this whole thing's working here too.
Well, it's really not fundamentally different to what I'm doing. Like I'm running an RME Fireface UFX2. It's a stupid expensive unit, but I'm also running 2 other interfaces off that with just shit going all over the place. It's a rat's nest of cables back there. But the good thing about having these kind of things from the outset, say the 18i20, I believe you said you had, is you do have that expansion on the back with ADAT. You do have the ins and outs. You can expand with outboard gear if you want to down the line. It's a great piece of kit. And even if you're only using, I believe is that an Audio Technica that you got in front of you, an AT 2020?
And you'd be correct. Yeah, this baby's been serving me pretty well, actually.
They sound great. But yeah, like the more you have to play with, the more inevitably you will play with, especially when it comes to sound production. It's a rabbit hole that never ends. Once you go down there, you will never come back. And having adequate gear from the outset, like the Scarlett stuff, it's half the battle. It gets you those inputs and outputs. That's if you want to do any hybrid mixing. So do stuff in the box and do stuff with analog.
Yeah, that's for sure too. Actually, I got another one of these tucked in right here in my little closet. This is my quasi vocal booth because it's not really like insulated or do anything like that too. But I mean, it, like we were talking earlier, it gets the damn job done, is what we'd like to say.
Hell yeah, bro. Hell yeah, brother.
So yeah, it all works out too. But I guess what's your guitar? And I guess if you want to elaborate on what other gear the other guys use, as well as like what you use for editing and DAW wise, go ahead.
Yeah, man. That's a great question. So my guitar of choice is it's made by LTD. It's the Ben Wyman Signature LTD. It's kind of like it's based off the X-Tone series of ESP guitars. And this thing is it's just the most, I don't have words for how much I love this freaking thing. I have too many guitars. I have in the studio at the moment, there's 17 guitars on the rack. We have more guitars and basses just in storage and stuff like that. We don't need them. I only ever really use the one, and that's the Ben Wyman. It has, Ben Wyman is the is the guitarist from Dillinger Escape Plan and currently plays with Suicidal Tendencies. Yeah, it's just set up to his spec. So it's running what's called the Evertune bridge system. It literally never goes out of tune. It physically can't. You can set it up in such a way where you can bend the strings and the notes won't go sharp or flat. They'll just stay in one note. Locking tuners. I have swapped out the pickups from the what were they? I think they were Fishman Fluence, which they're cromulent, they're fine, but I wanted something a little bit weirder. So I ended up going with Lace Alumitone pickups, which they're kind of like they're humbuckers, but with it's like a single coil wearing humbucker clothes. It has that Tom Morello kind of cut to it, but it also does the humbucker thing as well. So it's kind of thin, like kind of a little bit thin sounding, but because in the studio I primarily use Mesa rectifiers, it does wonders with that amp, because that amp has such a fat ass on it. Like you need something that's gonna play nicely with it. Most people run a tube screamer into it. I'm running a clon type of pedal, but because of the nature of the pickups, it doesn't have that massive amount of arse that makes it flop out. So it just has this really nice sound to it that I really like. But live, I use the same guitar, but instead of using any real amplification, I'm using I was using a Kemper, but I recently switched to something called a Hotone Ampero, which is it's a emulator in the vein of like a Helix or something like that, in that kind of class where you load effects and you load amps and cabinet IRs and stuff like that. In my opinion, the modeling has just gotten to a point where there's no such thing as better. It's just how you use it. And I was able to set that up in such a way where it sounds like a rectifier to me. And I'm using my own impulse responses for a cabinet that I like. It sounds like my rig. It sounds great in my ears. So generally speaking, I'm just that into the front of house, and we run our own in-ear system on stage. What I hear never changes, and so that's basically mine. Johnny is playing an Ernie Ball Music Man bass. He's like heavily influenced by Flea. He loves Flea, and the type of tones that Flea was getting with those big humbucker style basses. So that into a Dark Glass Alpha Omega, the iBox. It's something you can't really go wrong with. It's got that nice modern crunchy sound to it, and just slays. Then you have Ramon, who everything on his drum kit is premium DW stuff. He has a DW collectors with all the DW hardware, some Gibraltar hardware like his racks and stuff like that. Zildjian, what is it? Sweet K, like all the K stuff. So it's slightly darker sounding cymbals. They all kind of blend together really well. He's running some posty stuff and some minor. And all of that. Oh, and also a Roland SPX something sampler for any backings that I can't play at the same time as the other stuff. Mainly just rhythm guitars if I'm doing leads or something like that. And all of our gear is running into a Midas MR18 box with splitters, and we have a mixing platform, or we have a mixing thing that's going on there. We get to control our own mixers. Then that all gets sent to the front of house, and then we just have a person at the front that just makes sure that everything is kind of at a relative level that is appropriate for the venue. So we tend to mix ourselves as well. So we're a tightly controlled unit.
They put it that way. I'm hoping you're not saying it's like micromanaged or anything like that too.
We like to take away as many points of failure or inconsistency as we can, yes.
So it's just a quasi, because it's not like dominating or anything like that too. Be like, no, you gotta do it this way or that sort of way. So
yeah,
that's why I would say micromanaging is kind of dangerous. Yeah.
Well, look, it is micromanaged to a degree, but when you're working with different PAs, different environments, different whatever, and you're relying on one person at the front who doesn't know you, doesn't know your songs, doesn't know what you like to hear, isn't on stage with you to hear what's coming out of the foldback, you're asking a hell of a lot from one person who is just there doing their best to make sure everybody is happy at the same time. And that's just not feasible. Some people are really good and they get really close, but if you want to make a consistent experience for everyone, then simplify it as much as possible. We have our in-ear system because we know what we want to hear live, so we create that environment for ourselves. And we also, all of us are, well, myself and Ramon, we're soundies. We know what should be coming through the front of house, how it should be gated, how it should be compressed, yada yada yada. The only thing that we don't really know is what blend of whatever should be like. Should the guitars be louder? Should the bass be louder? Is this a bass heavy room? We just have somebody who's at the front with a pad that can make those kind of decisions for us, and just makes the job of the front of house guy so much easier. So all they have to focus on is making sure things are working. They only have to problem solve what they have to focus on, what's critical. But it also allows for a lot of emergency redundancy should anything go wrong, and that's probably the most important function of having all these processes and whatever set up.
Yeah, that's for sure too. Actually, you really know a lot more. So, I mean, like, are you the most experienced member of the group in general? Or I guess does everybody have like their own little, I guess, pros and cons?
Everybody has their niche. Everybody has their niche of what they do in the band. But out of everyone, I'm the most experienced and the most active in the music scene. So I'm not just doing sound for myself. I'm doing sound for a lot of other bands and for a lot of other projects. I'm always adjusting something. And there's a universal truth to engineering, and there's a universal truth to engineering and mixing audio, and that is a lot of it is going to be the same. A lot of what you'll need to do are going to require the same moves and the same type of processes. They won't always be done exactly the same way, but you don't always need, like, especially with the person that we have out the front, they don't need to know why certain things are the way they are. They don't need to know how a compressor works or why it's set to a certain threshold or anything like that. They just need to know how to fit the sound that they're hearing into the environment that they're in. And that removes so much headache from everyone's lives when it comes to live performance. It just means that they can focus on, I don't know, either problem solving or playing Pokemon Go.
Yeah, I know you did mention it too. So I mean, at least that gets you out of the house. So that's a good thing. So
well,
actually, I was going to say in other words.
So I don't have to go anywhere.
I mean, they say like go to the locations too. So I figure like you try to catch a Bulbasaur like here in like this national park, for instance, or something like that.
Well, look, I do that. That is one cool aspect of touring and playing a game like that, where you can pick up different Pokemon from different physical regions, and it will let you know where those regions are, where that particular Pokemon came from. And you can also spin gyms and pick up gifts to give to friends. That, like, I still have a bunch of gifts to give out from Adelaide. It's in the center south of Australia. So when I was out there mid last year with a different band, I still have gifts from there to give to people. And yeah, it's another cool aspect of touring when you can tie it into whatever game that you're playing, that you can kind of kick onto other people.
I'll tell you better to do like the Call of Duty or the Bloodborne Souls game where you're going around either shooting somebody or slaying some monsters or something like that too. So yeah, it's like something different too. But that is interesting. I've always heard like Pokemon Go, but I never like got into it too because it really wasn't my thing. So I guess did you get into it recently?
It's no one's thing until you kind of start playing it for more than a couple of weeks, and it's like, oh, I have to go to the gym, so I have to spin the thing, or I have to catch this, or I have to, oh great, now I'm a fan of playing it. It wasn't my thing either. I was just playing it to be like, there was one point where I was in a band that was based in the Australian Capital Territory, and I lived in Melbourne, so anytime I wanted to hook up with those guys, I had to fly up there. And one of the ways that I kind of used to keep a constant connection with them was to play Pokemon Go. It was something that kind of helped to kind of let them remember that I'm there, that I'm doing something passive, sending gifts or whatever. That it just.
I'm still right here. I'm right here, man. I'm right here.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what you mean.
Because like, yeah, when you're in a band, like, it is kind of like being in a relationship. Sometimes you see each other every day or hear from each other every day. Sometimes you don't. But in that particular case, like, the guys had their own lives that they were particularly busy with, and they communicated as much as they needed to. But yeah, playing that game was just another way for us to connect in a way that was more just jovial and not serious.
Well, we got this into COVID a little bit too, but I guess this happened more so during COVID or come a little after.
It was a little bit after COVID, but yeah, for me, COVID was like the best situation ever. I was working at warehousing up until that point, broke my ankle. COVID happened. I had to get a job doing something, and somehow ended up getting a job with the Australian government, which I'm still doing now. So now I pretty much just sit at home all day, every day, either doing government stuff or audio stuff. I'm in a very lucky situation.
I was saying, you're not part of that CIA of the Australian government, are you?
He knows about the mission.
Oh no. They go running in with the police and everything too, like, oh shit, that sort of thing. So
We need to step into this building, sir. Don't go into the cell, just stand next to it.
I'll just rest my knee up against this bar right here. So
Just up against the bar. Drop your pants.
yeah, to be prepared.
By the way, we did not get cavity search. I'm just going to throw that out there.
It was like cavity search. They weren't checking the back end, were they?
No.
That would still be a robot.
That would have been horrendous.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Or they bring out the dogs too. They just have to sniff all around and everything too.
One of the guys in the band was a bit of a furry, so he would have enjoyed that.
Oh jeez, I was guess was he wasn't high as a kite at the time, was he?
No, but so we played there were no drugs involved, but we played Beijing, and that night after Beijing, it was just the whole band turned into a bunch of freaking animals. So the keyboardist in that band got super duper blind drunk with the drummer of Insomnium at the front of our hotel. They couldn't stand, they couldn't blink, they couldn't even raise their heads. It was horrible. And myself and the drummer ended up inviting a bunch of people into our hotel room, and we had a massive pillow fight. Woke up everybody on the floor. Our guitarist, one of the guitarists of the band's just slamming on the door. We open up like, hey mate, what's going on? He's like, everybody out, you two go to fucking bed. It's like, okay, no worries. The next day in the van to the next venue, to the airport, we're just getting chewed the fuck out by the singer. Just, we have Kez over here who's blind as a fucking whatever. He's just vomiting into a bag, and you two idiots, like, what the hell was going on in your hotel room? We're just sitting there trying our hardest not to lose our shit laughing. But actually, just before that, we were a funny aside. So we're in the lobby that night, about to go onto the van. We're all waiting for the keyboard player to come, and he just hadn't rocked up yet. I go upstairs to check on him. Their hotel room was empty, but the toilet door's closed. I'm like, okay, I wonder if he's in there. I open the door. He's just standing there with his pants around his ankles, just heaving into the sink. And he just turns around and he's just cross-eyed, sweating, pale, just screaming at me, I know what you're trying to do, and I'm not going to let you do it. Fuck off. So we're trying to, like, pull him downstairs. He turns around, goes back into the room, crawls back into bed. His whole front's covered in puke and whatever. Myself and the drummer end up, like, helping him back to the lift. We get him downstairs. Of course, we pulled his pants up or whatever. The singer and the other guitarist are just like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And he's just standing there cross-eyed, can't lift his eyes or anything, just an absolute mess of a golem. It was the worst. We're at the airport, we're trying to wake him up, whatever, like trying to get him to, like, just straighten up a bit. He couldn't even do up his shoelaces when he was going through security. The Beijing security attendant had to do his shoes up for him. He's trying to put things in his pocket, missing, throwing on the floor. It was just the messiest thing ever, but it was so freaking funny to watch. Eventually, he kind of snaps out of it all of a sudden. He's like, oh, we're at the airport. I'm like, yes, we are, Kez.
So I was like, how did you not get like all the Chinese military on you guys? To be honest, so it's like, oh my gosh.
He behaved for the rest of that tour.
I would say, yeah, or they had to like take you on a bulletproof bus, like what happened with Dave Mustaine in Ireland after he said, "This is for the cause, anarchy and Antrim." So
I'm surprised we didn't get just straitjacketed by the singer. Like, yeah, something kind, or not really too similar. One of the gigs that Al's had towards the end of last year, Johnny got a little bit too drunk before our set, and his playing was questionable a little bit. We afterwards it was still good. It was still all right, but I could tell when people are playing a little bit sloppily, and he's just giving himself a whole bunch of woe is me about it. I'm just like, dude, chill out. It's cool. Just don't drink before you set. You don't want to ever do that. It's a bad idea.
well, yeah. I mean, you see what happens firsthand, so unbelievable. I guess you stay in touch with those guys. Are they all doing okay?
I don't, but they seem to be fine. Just I left that band in 2019, and yeah, like just the only thing that was really keeping us together, like keeping my involvement with them, was being involved in the band. It was just transactional. So it ended. I went on my way, and as far as I know, they're still doing well, and I hope they continue to do well. Very entertaining group.
So I was gonna say, hindsight at this point is 2020, literally, when you think about it.
There was nothing bad. Like on my end anyway, there was nothing bad about it. It was just, for me anyway, it just got to a point where I had some personal things that I had to move on with. So I spent about 3 or 4 years doing that, and before I started getting back into music full on. So it's kind of hard to ask a band to sit around for that long. So yeah, just you have to make these decisions.
Yep. But you say you met some of the more bigger groups like Atreyu and Trivium when you were with Insomnia?
I was playing in a different band that was supporting Insomnium. So there was, met Insomnium. Atreyu, I'm playing with a different band with coming Wednesday. But yeah, like met quite a few people in the bigger bands like that. They're all just they're all cool. They're all just regular dudes. Just absolutely regular dudes. The funniest people were the guys in Chimera. At the time I used to smoke a little kush, but when I played with the band there was a band I was playing with in Adelaide. Chimera were playing there. Not Chimera, sorry. Brugeria.
Chimera.
Sorry?
I was going to say Chimera. I think that's how you're pronouncing it.
Yeah,
but it was something else.
Yeah. But it was actually Brugeria that I was thinking of. I always call it Chimera, whatever. Yeah, but it was Brugeria that I'm thinking of. The band that Dino Cazares started, the Mexican thing. But yeah, those guys were just smoking J's and going to town in Adelaide, and I happened to bump into a few of them. They're like, and yeah, just ended up getting pretty high with them after our set, which is a good time. It's always like I don't remember him taking part in it, but it was really cool to have a chat with Shane Embry, who was filling in on bass with them at the time. He was also playing with oh god damn, I'm gonna be crucified for forgetting this. His main band.
Napalm Death?
Napalm Death, that's what I'm thinking of. He was playing with Napalm Death that night as well. So it was cool, like just getting high and having a chat with him. He wasn't participating, but it was just really cool to like have a chat with the dude that's been, through the trap so often.
Yeah, that's for sure. Actually, yeah, that's right. He left Napalm Death. I think he's not doing like his own little story. I don't know if he's part of any other groups at the moment, but I know he stuck it out with Napalm Death for a good while. I think I want to say he was probably the only original member, like from, I forget the history too, and I'm sorry if I get this wrong. People don't judge me for one thing, but I think it was from the Enslavement to Obliteration. I think that's how long he's been involved with Napalm Death.
Damn. My favorite song of theirs is that one that goes for 1 second.
Actually, You Suffer. That's what it was. I think it was like 4 seconds, but it was like it's not like a second. It's still only like a second long too. It's like You Suffer, but
Just
why?
click, 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 what?
Yep, and I mean it was just that quick too. It's actually the last song on their like greatest hits album too, so that's kind of funny.
It's in the Guinness Book of World Records. It's the shortest song ever recorded.
Yeah, that's true. They did actually a couple. I think on the Enslavement album there was a couple that was only like maybe 5 or maybe so many seconds long.
Yeah, and at the show that they did in Adelaide, I think it was New Dead Festival. Yeah, they played. There was like a 5 or 6 minute stretch where they played like 7 songs that only went for a second each, like big introductions, and then that was it. It was amazing.
I would say The Kill was actually one that at least allowed me to do blast beats for about 20 seconds, so that was at least something to enjoy. Then you just start yelling like "Don't kill, don't kill, don't kill, don't kill," and it just fades out. So
Yeah,
fades out the energy. So.
hell yeah.
I was going to say, did you have any brushes with COVID? Was you and your family okay too?
Yeah, we're all fine. As I said, it was the best time for me because, well, yeah, as I mentioned before, like it ended up getting me into a situation in life where I could stay home all the time and concentrate on the things that I love, like music. I have to deal like these days. I'm just doing web chats, so I'm not even actually talking to anyone anymore. I just sit in the studio. Pardon me, sit in the studio, attend to whatever web chats I have to attend to, but the rest of the time I'm just listening to music, analyzing it, mixing it, doing something with it. It's an amazing position to be in. So for me, COVID was great. I can definitely appreciate that not many others would share that sentiment. And certainly having COVID several times was just the worst. But yeah, what's the phrase? One person's trash is another person's treasure.
I don't know if that was the right analogy, but I see what you're saying too. Like, I'm blessed in a way, so it was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah. Not many people can really say that they benefited from COVID. Yeah, I guess you could say, yeah, I'm just blessed to be part of that minority.
We are the lucky ones. That's the one I think some people have also said too. So that suits me too. So that's good to see. Good to see you guys are doing well too. So all right, good to have you along for the long ride here.
Well, yeah, we're all surviving. As I don't really know anyone personally. I don't think that's passed away from it. I heard a lot of stories about it, and obviously it was an awful, awful, awful situation. In my opinion, it kind of showed, the true nature of people. You say, take care of each other because otherwise bad things will happen. Like, I think there was a massive demonstration in Victoria, in my state, Victoria. We had a massive group of people walk over one of our main bridges, the Westgate Bridge, and at first a lot of the anti-vaxxers and stuff like that were just like, oh, this is cool, this is whatever, look, they're doing the thing, blah blah blah. But then as time went on, there's all these pictures of people saying that they don't want to do the vaccine and stuff like that, but they're either smoking cigarettes or they're doing cocaine or doing speed during these protests. It's just like, you guys have got a real fucked up sense of morality, I swear. Like, especially like this. Actually, one thing I found massively funny about COVID was smokers saying that they couldn't wear their masks at work because they couldn't breathe right. It's like, well, have you tried quitting smoking? Like, I don't care if you haven't got lung cancer or anything now, but CO2 messes with your alveoli. Like, it doesn't matter how healthy you think you are while you're a smoker, it is damaging you. If you can smoke, you can wear a freaking mask. I just thought it was a funny argument. It just brought out the strangest in people.
You're telling me, and I can say why. I don't like to get started on the states too. I tend to avoid it because it's really become more of a political talking point these days. So
Yeah. Well, politically, I don't. Politically, anybody can make of it what they will. I just think that there's certain things that are funny to me that were funny, and certain thing like especially like all the drugs being taken during the demonstrations in Victoria, and smokers saying that they couldn't wear the masks because they couldn't breathe. It's just like, come on, guys, come on, guys.
come on, man. So
Yeah.
all right. That's good to see, and good to see you are doing well there, mate. So good to have you along for the long ride here. So Nate, we almost talked for an hour and 30 minutes already. So I mean, we've really elaborated on a good bit here. So let's jump into a couple questions here, then we'll jump to the fun ones. Ready?
Yeah, go for it.
So I guess let's start first with like the lyrical content that you guys tend to cover too. Is it like real life examples, or you just try to like mold it together and try to like craft a little story for people to kind of relate to?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there's at the crux of it, it's all about positive mental health, being positive, and being able to address certain situations in your life that may not be so palatable. We as humans are taught many things in school, in life, in advertisements, and not all of those things are particularly not always healthy. We don't really have enough time to take proper care of ourselves, to take the time to make proper meals for ourselves, or just all sorts of things. In certain situation, we have been conditioned to not have the type of care and respect for ourselves that previous generations would have taken for granted. These days, it's 3 pizzas for $20, or got to save $1 here, $1 there, and blah blah blah. In these types of situations, over time, people need a release. They need to find some way to release the tension that's building up inside themselves, and that can result in all sorts of weird shit happening. So, like myself and some of the other guys in the bands, we were like, I was only ever on weed, thank fuck, but I was heavily onto it. I was extremely introverted. I couldn't talk to people. I certainly wouldn't have been able to have this type of talk interview. But yeah, some of the other guys in the band were on much rougher stuff. But it all came back to that we weren't happy. That we wanted to find ways to alleviate that discomfort that we were experiencing in life. Eventually just found that the only way through it is just to go through it and to identify what it is that we're uncomfortable with, what our values are, where those priorities sit, and basically just that. And discovering certain things that we thought were important aren't important at all, or certain relationships weren't beneficial for us as people. Just a whole bunch of life lessons. We kind of distilled that into lyrical content. It's as I said before, we try to make the songs as accessible as possible. And even if a song like "Speak Up" isn't applicable to someone, which the meaning of the song is in the song name, speak up with whoever about a particular situation that you're going through. Speak with a therapist, speak with a friend, speak with whoever. If that doesn't resonate with someone, then maybe freedom might, which is you don't want to speak to anybody, but you kind of know something is wrong anyway, but you're just not going to do anything about it and go along with the nervousness of life because that's just something that you're comfortable in doing. Maybe you just need to know that you're not the only person that is experiencing that particular situation, and that it's okay to feel uncomfortable and step outside yourself and your situation in order to do something about it. which leads to Speak Up, which leads to What Becomes, which leads to all the stuff that we have going on with all the other songs. Like, say, one of the new ones coming up, Devil I've Become. It's about how we can be absolutely terrible people at times. I myself have been a terrible person at times. Everybody has. But, that happened at a particular point in time, and that time has passed. I learned a lesson from it. Everybody learns a lesson from it. Everybody goes through it at some stage. It's whether you have to make the choice of whether you want to carry that with you and perpetually punish yourself for it. So yeah, the lyrical content boils down to, you are not alone. You will never be alone. Just make sure that you're not alone. There's someone there to talk to at all times about anything. Take advantage of those resources. It's one of those things I'm going to have to cut myself up from, because it's a subject that I could just go on about ad nauseum. People need to be kinder to themselves, to others, and all of us think that's a good way to connect with people is to reinforce that message.
I'll say, yeah, I kind of felt like those are some of the challenges you had faced, whether it was a little bit of drug use, maybe also being an introvert, because I know you had mentioned that earlier too. So I guess maybe just if you want to reiterate it too, but I guess what challenges have you faced being a musician in general?
As a musician, shoot. So as a musician, there were times where I've been ostracized from groups of people. For, let's say, we'll take the devil route. So there was a relationship that I was in that wasn't particularly beneficial for myself or the person involved. I decided to get out of it. I didn't get out of it exactly the way that would have been best for myself or the other person. I wasn't honest with myself or the other person. That led to being ostracized by quite a lot of people, and it still occasionally happens to this day, depending on who I'm interacting with or who's involved. But I don't carry that weight any more than knowing that in that particular situation, I just should have told the person that this is a situation that's not working for me, and I don't want to I don't want to be on drugs. I don't want to smoke cigarettes. I don't want to mess around with people. I'm just not this type of person that I'm just not this type of person, but I could have done it in a more I could have done that in a more straightforward kind of a way. But yeah, that's that. As a musician, that's something that my personal choice, that my own choices have affected me professionally. Luckily, I've been able to bounce back from it and been able to show to quite a number of people what my core values actually are, what they mean to me, and how they dictate my journey through life, and that I've forgiven myself for not being honest. But I've also taken the lesson of, I don't want to hurt people by not being honest. So yeah, that's one. But another one, I suppose, is when I was a heavy pot smoker. There was a period of about 2 years where I was agoraphobic. I didn't leave the house at all, and my girlfriend at the time ended up just paying for absolutely everything. It was an awful, awful, awful situation. It was just because I didn't have any hope for myself. I thought that I was just a worthless person, and just, insert horrible adjectives. And the fact is, at that point in time, it was true, because I was playing into that pigeonhole that I set for myself. Over the period of about 8 years, as I decided to make incremental changes, see a psychiatrist, see a psychologist, get medicated, speak to people about whatever's going on in my head and stuff like that, I slowly became the person that you're talking to now. Very different person to what I was then, but I still come from that pot of shit. So I would say that without sounding pretentious, I'm uniquely qualified to tell people that everything will be okay as long as you want it to be okay and you take the steps necessary for it to be okay.
But that'd also be your advice too, because it was kind of leading to this next question here. Because I think I was talking to Johnny originally when we were trying to get this whole thing set up as well too, and he had asked like, how'd you find out about our music? And I told him it was through the Facebook group Band Together that Christina put together. Yeah. So,
Christina, by the way, she's just a legend.
Yeah, she seems to keep herself busy too. I think it's kind of wearing on her mentally, to be honest. But this question right here kind of deals with musicians, and I think really any musician in general too. But let's just keep it into the indie musicians. I guess anybody else in our little Band Together group too. So I guess what would be your advice for people in our little group there?
It's not all about the numbers. It's not all about the shares. It's not all about the metrics. It's not all about it's not all about the statistics or the algorithms or just whatever you do, bring it back to why you became a musician in the first place. And for the most part, especially in the Band Together group, you look at everybody, a lot of us are well put together and stuff like that in there, but you can also tell we are all kind of misfits in our own ways. We all started getting into music because we wanted to connect with others. Now, the state of music as it is at the moment, we are driven to get as many likes, clicks, follows, players, whatever, as much attention as we possibly can. We're kind of mentally conditioned to think that if we're not at the front, if we don't have the biggest numbers, then somebody else is going to come along and, take all that from us. But first and foremost, care about what it is that you're creating, why you're creating it, and if that's part of your core values. And if you're going to do anything, don't half-ass it. Don't put out an album for the sake of putting out an album. Make sure that you're putting anything that you mean, your vulnerability, into what it is that you're doing. Put your full self behind what you are doing. And it doesn't matter whether people like it or whether they don't like it or whether they're behind it or hate it. That doesn't matter at all. What you're doing is you're taking a part of yourself and you're exercising it. You're putting it out there. And once it's out there, you can interact with it. You can interact with that as if you would interact with a photo. You can see yourself from the outside. And then you can look at that. You can look at what you've put out there and decide, does expressing this or understanding this any better make me a better person or not? And that doesn't just go with music. That goes with anything that you're doing. We're talking about music right now.
Let's keep it in the family, yeah. So yeah,
keep it in the family. Like, I can even ask the question: Do you feel as though putting this podcast together makes you a better person?
It does. And actually, it's funny when you talked about being an introvert in the beginning there, because that's how it was with me. Because I had a brief stint in sales, and I would say it was a partial rock bottom. It wasn't like fully, if you know what I mean. But I was kind of depressed, and it kind of put me in a dark place. Let's use that instead. So I realized I wasn't very good with talking with people as I thought I was. I thought I was maybe a little extroverted. And after that whole thing, I realized I wasn't very good at it. So, but definitely doing this podcast here, it's helped me reach out to people. I mean, I'm talking from the other side of the world, and it's actually now it's Saturday, and it's already been Saturday in your neck of the woods there. So, I mean, it allows me to interact. No, thank God we're on the same day. So, unfortunately, it's my bedtime, so I'm going to go get jacked up on NyQuil afterwards so I can fight this cold out. So, whoop, whoop. Afterwards, be drowsy in the morning, too, so I think I'll sleep till like 1 in the afternoon tomorrow. But anyway, yeah, it definitely helped me reach out to people here, too. And it was even being able to share your story as well, because you get to know more the story because sometimes the stories get like pretty deep. Someone died from suicide. They were drug users. They were probably drank pretty heavy back in the day, and some even went to jail. So I mean, it's an eye opener, really. So you realize what people's lives have gone through too. Some some have been a little bit in that existential range because yours was more in the existential sort of realm, as we like to put it there. Whereas some have been impacted by COVID in like major ways. So I know I was talking with one guy. His band is Bond of Iniquity. He had told me he had lost some family because of COVID. So it's very tragic too. But shout out to Nate. Go check out his music, by the way. Bond of Iniquity is his band name. So yeah.
You have to go through and send me all of these recommendations, by the way.
Yeah. Actually, we got a list too. I got to send a list of all the Christian metal bands that there are too. Because I think when we were doing the interview too, I was like listing like off like all these ones too, like some of the old ones from like way back in the late 80s, early 90s, and now it's like upwards to today. So it's an extensive list. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what you've just mentioned there, just hearing these stories and how, I mean, even I would assume that you've listened to these podcasts after the fact and thought about, you know, some of the more superficial things like what can I do better? How did I do? How did I sound? Blah blah blah. But then you will also listen to the story that's being shared and remember what you felt in the moment while you were having these conversations with people, while they were expressing themselves and being vulnerable. That, no matter what you're doing, is a thing that everybody should be aiming for with anything that they're doing, and especially with music. Music is the act of just reminding everybody that you're not alone.
Amen to that.
Never,
right.
ever alone.
All right. That sounds good. Thank you so much for sharing too. And actually, you did kind of jump ahead because normally before we jump into the last question, I always ask, do you have any questions for me or anything like that? But hold that thought for just a moment here too. So let's go ahead and jump to the fun ones because we are almost out of time. So, first the fun questions here, I guess. So what would you consider is your favorite food?
Anything I make myself. It used to be pizza, but then I've switched to a mainly vegetable-based diet recently, and I like anything that makes me feel energized, that I don't feel like I have to work off or I feel slouchy about afterwards. So, yeah, just insert vegetables here. I still eat meat and stuff like that from time to time, but just vegetables, man. Any sort of vegetable cooked any way, bring it on.
He's a little bit of an omnivore, as we like to put it. So
yeah,
good choice.
Yeah,
I guess, is there a particular vegetable, or is it, do you like doing like the mixed vegetables, like the cauliflower, broccoli, and all those guys?
I guess it would be either broccoli or cauliflower, just because, you know, throw some za'atar or hummus or you know, whatever on them, and they can taste completely different. But especially like, say, broccoli, being that it's an antioxidant, gets rid of free radicals and stuff. Just, yeah, you know, anything that makes this work better or makes, you know, the body function better. It supports the values that I have as a person. So my favorite foods are just eating healthy.
Good choice. All right. And for the next one, what would you consider is your favorite movie?
Oh man, shoot. Oh man. That's like asking me to choose between my favorite children. Like, you can't do it.
Who's your favorite? Yeah, they're always asking, Daddy, who's your favorite son or daughter? Yeah.
Look, I'm going to have to go with Terminator 2. It's the one that, like, apart from it being the first one that sticks out to mind, it's the one where I can remember all the scenes. Like, in like half a second, I've just played the whole movie back in my head just now. And I'm like, yeah, that's the one that I have the strongest connection with. It could have been any movie that I have seen at the same points in time as Terminator 2, but it was just that one. The soundtrack, being that I saw it mainly at my uncle's house, and at the time, like, we got along super well. I just wanted to live there. It's just an awesome movie.
That Arnold Schwarzenegger is a badass too. Come with me if you want to live.
Yeah, to the chopper. Wrong movie.
To the top. Yeah. That's going to be the meme for like the rest of his life and beyond too. So I mean, like, it's never going to get old. So I think funny enough, they actually wanted him to come back as Conan the Barbarian, because I think they did because he had Indiana Jones, and then obviously I'm thinking of Harrison Ford too much, but I know they brought back Han Solo and Chewbacca for like the Star Wars. So it's almost like they bring back the old timers to like reprise their roles. So I think they want Schwarzenegger to do like Conan the Barbarian again, like way he did way back in like the 80s or something.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that, but hey, whatever. If it works.
One would hope, but fingers crossed. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
All right. First off, do you drink by any chance?
Not really.
I guess let's just do this one instead. I guess, what would you consider your favorite non-alcoholic drink?
Mineral water.
He said it was a hot day, so I'm hoping you're chugging a good bunch of that too there, mate.
Sorry?
I was going to say, you said it was a hot day, so maybe you're chugging a whole bunch of water too. So I guess.
Yeah, man. I actually had the rehearsal studio that I was at earlier today didn't have mineral water, but they had soda water. I just went ham on that.
I'll say now you feel the consequences of it now. So
I feel great.
No, really? You say soda water too. I think it's like a lot of sodium, so I think that's kind of dehydrating you.
Oh no, so like the kind of it's the kind of stuff that you mix with whatever to make it's very similar to mineral water, but I don't know, maybe I just don't know what I'm talking about. To me, it tastes like mineral water to me.
I think you think of tonic water. I think that's what you're thinking of.
It was tonic water, sorry.
Okay, yeah.
My bad.
No, you're good. I don't drink this stuff either, but I know my dad, he always gets it like through the mail and everything too. Actually, we had a little package here too. I was feeling that it was actually little metal things. I guess it's like for hangers and stuff. I thought it was broken glass at first. I feel like, oh geez, I hope this wasn't Dad's mineral water or tonic water, I should say. So, fortunately, it wasn't. So
it just hits in a particular way.
Something like that. I'm not too sure.
There is one alcoholic beverage that I do like. Bilson's vodka. Their flavors are ridiculous. I don't know if you guys have it over there, but
never heard of it really. So sadly,
it's like drinking Whiz Fizz. If you've had Whiz Fizz,
I mean, my choices are pretty slim, to be honest. So I'm sorry, I haven't heard some of the alcoholic beverages you talked about. So sorry, mate.
It's Australia. We drink wing wazzers and dong boodles.
And then we learn a little bit of the dialect and some of the words you guys throw out too. Boy, everybody's got their own little vocabulary, as we like to say.
Yeah, we're all just a bunch of drongos.
Apparently, yes.
That's an actual word that we use.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we got yinzers out here, so I mean, like I said, everybody's got their own little vocabulary, little dialects and everything too. So it's weird.
Oh, hang on. Australian slang. Wait, sorry, give me 1 second. Australian slang sentences. So, oh,
there's ought to be interesting here too.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna read out some Australian slang. Like, to me, it's just like it's like asking me to say the word, like, what does yes mean? I just know it is yes. But what do we got here? We have people here sometimes have a whinge.
Whinge.
Do you know what a whinge is?
Nope.
It's just having a. Well, I was about to use another one. Having a sook. It just means to complain. It's chockers in here. Do you know that one?
Somehow it sounds like bonkers in a way too, but I think it's not the same thing.
Nope. It just means that there's a lot of people in one place. Crack open a tinny.
I'm going to say like it's I think I like martini to be honest too, or is it like give me a martini or something like that too? But I guess what does it mean?
Open a beer.
Open a beer.
Open a can of beer. Um, to chunder. So are you? So if I was going to ask a question, hey, are you going to chunder? Do you know what that means?
You know, the first thing that always comes to mind is it's always the wrong one too in this case. But it always sounds like you got to talk or something like that too. But what does it mean?
It means you're going to throw up.
Uh, I think your
Yeah,
guys are a little bit worse than us, to be honest too. So I mean, like
we just
we would say like something like, "Are you guys going to come with us or not?" or something like that. I would say, in terms of my Pittsburgh dialect, I only know like maybe a couple words. I know instead of soda, we would say pop. Then instead of washer, we say wusher. And the one that I always like to use the most is yins or zinzer, which I forget where it came from too. In fact, what's strange about Pittsburgh is it's a little spread out. So I think like maybe more on the south side of the city, people would be more akin to that sort of dialect and everything too. So that's the best I can tell you too. But you guys, you take it to a whole nother level. So
yeah, our vernacular is just stupid. That's what happens when you leave a bunch of white people on some random island in the middle of the Pacific or wherever we are, and expect us to behave ourselves. No, we just bullshit the English language even more than what it is.
that's why the English from the UK wanted to leave you guys there. Just get rid of
Yeah,
you guys.
pretty much.
Yeah, that's all cool
Or
too. And
or or as we would say, struth.
truth or something like that.
Struth. Or fucking oath.
Oh my gosh. All right. We'll digress on that too, but it's always good to at least learn something new every day with doing these interviews. So thanks for sharing.
You bet.
All right.
What else you got for me?
Just one more fun question right here, I guess. And this one may be kind of stretching it too, but I guess what would you consider is your favorite song?
My favorite song. That changes. That changes quite a lot. Songs for me are a soundtrack to a particular point in my life. So whenever I'm listening to something quite a lot, I'll be listening to it quite a lot at a particular moment. And then later on, I may or may not listen to it as much, depending on how I'm feeling. But whenever I listen to something, I always come back to that era of where I was listening to it. So I would say that my favorite song at this point in time is Mirror by Code Orange. Um, it's just beautiful. It's just a beautiful song, performed by a band performed by a hardcore band of all things. Um, it's just chill. It's relaxed. It's not tense. It's just serene, which is a strange thing to come from a band like Code Orange, which they're just mainly known for being over the top, distorted, and beat downy and D beat kind of type of stuff. I think it's really a testament to what they're capable of as musicians and in displaying their vulnerability. They know that they have a sound. They know that people come to Code Orange because they're expecting a certain thing, but to put out something like Mirror is just it's just what makes them an incredible band.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about too. I think I remember the first song that kind of got me into it was actually Sulfur Surrounding. That was one of the
Yeah,
ones.
yeah. Also, a really good song from the Underneath album. That whole album was what got me into them. The whole evolution of Mudman and how different songs like Swallow the Rabbit Hole and Underneath, like just how the different clips from that particular album came together to create a narrative of the Mudman, and where it had evolved from I Am King through just everything that they've done to where it is now, to show that despite their aggression, they are still capable of being vulnerable, and it's a wonderful example of a band being true to themselves and true to what they're doing.
That's for sure. And darn it, there was drone hopping out of the void, or hive. Sorry, that's right. I was trying to think of that one, and then what was the other one? It was on the above. It was that one, but then there was another song from the above, and the name's escaping me at the moment too. It had like a real nice breakdown at the end too, and it was like, "Give me your fucking life." And
I know which one. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it right now, but I know which one you're talking about.
You know, I was listening to a good bit too, and it's been on the radio the last couple of weeks. I'm gonna hit myself crazy, but we'll digress on that for now. But killer band nonetheless. I think they're out of Pittsburgh too.
Hell yeah!
So even double whammy. It's all good.
You guys got it going on.
Absolutely. So, all right. But Nate, we're down to one more question right here. Before we jump into it, did you have any other questions for me or any final words you want to say before we jump into it?
Yeah, I have a couple of final words. Glass, leaf, porcupine, dirt, sky, pool. I do have a final question. What does the color purple taste like?
I wish I could tell you. I mean,
sorry. Again, that's just Australian humor. You asked if I had any final words, and there's some words in a question. we have a dumb sense of humor. No, not really. I'd just like to reiterate that if you're being honest, the thing that I think anybody should be proud of when they're putting themselves out there is if you're being vulnerable and honest in what you're doing and you're being true to yourself, then you're being an incredible human being, and that is the type of thing that I want to see in the world. That's what I want to see more of, just people being themselves, being true, just putting their own beauty into the world. And just about everybody in the Band Together group does that. The one thing I will caution is just don't get sucked in by the numbers. Numbers don't mean anything. It's what means something is if you can connect with someone. And if you're doing that, then hats off to you.
All right. And to go back to your question, I know you meant a sense of humor. I did have green eggs and ham way back in the day, and surprisingly green tastes pretty good. So there's at least that for humor. And also for your other sense of humor, too, in terms of Superb Owl, it was a Super Bowl. So.
Yes, the Superb Owl.
I mean, it was a good choice, too, but you caught me at work, too, so it took me maybe at least 2 looks just to be like, oh, that's what he meant.
Yeah, I was being really dumb.
Hey, that's what you got to do with humor-wise, too. So, but for the last question right here, actually, did you have anything else, or is it okay to go ahead and jump into the last question?
Yeah, go for it, man.
Okay. So you may have touched on it a good bit here, too, but just to kind of tell you what it is. So throughout this whole conversation, obviously, you told us about some of the dark places you have been a part of, too. Had some funny moments here, obviously, the whole thing with the Hong Kong incident, if we want to call it that. And then maybe some things with the bands here, too. You kind of seem like you fell into a dark place, as we were kind of using that as the analogy there, too. But for some of the people who have been impacted by COVID heavily, and I guess those who are still perhaps in those dark places, what sort of message of hope would you give to musicians and people out there as we try to move forward in a post-COVID world?
Care for others like you would want to be cared for. Listen to others like you would want to be listened to. And feel as deeply and as hard as you possibly can, because that's not something that, COVID or not, that's not something that you're going to be able to do forever. While you're here, do your best to make the most of what you've got, because you only get one go. Make it count.
Smoking like a true prodigy. All right. So thank you so much for sharing that, Nate. And boy, oh boy, did we talk we talked for a good bit there. Actually, we had a little bit of a pause just to kind of fill in the audience because Nate's phone died on him too.
My phone sucks.
Well, that's why the scenery changed too. So it's like, oh, he entered into a brighter area too. He must be in heaven at this point.
Yeah, I was gonna make a dark joke then, but glad I caught myself there. Yeah, no, it's about the same. Just I guess there's just a window closer to me, I suppose. But yeah, just remember to breathe. Pardon me. Remember to breathe.
Literally. So
yeah. Remember to breathe. Remember to find little things each day. It's easy to be upset and miserable and angry and all that type of stuff. Being happy and being positive and all that it's something that you have to work for. And if we were happy and positive and all that stuff all the time, we wouldn't be happy or positive. That'd just be normal. So it's okay to feel low. It's okay to feel great. It's okay to feel somewhere in between. Just, don't let hate in too much.
Absolutely. All right. Did you have any shout outs, or I guess you want to do a little promotion of any music you guys got in the works right now? I know you talked about, what was it, The Devil in Us or something?
Yeah, that's not coming out for a little while yet. But yeah, there's the newest single that we have out now is What Becomes. That's been out for roughly about come Monday. That's going to be the end of the third or the start of the fourth week of that being out. Yeah, give that a spin. Give any of the songs a spin, really. They're all bangers in my opinion. But yeah, the other I'd assume that somewhere in the description I would like to hope that you'd put down any of the recommendations that you've mentioned in this interview. I'd hope that they would be in the description below or above, wherever it is. But yeah, just keep listening to music, keep vibing, just keep feeling things, whether it's our songs or whether it's other songs. Just vibe and vibe hard.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely Turret Overdrive and Celestial Burial. I'll have to put those in the description for representing Australian bands, also Australian death metal as well. So should represent. All right, sounds good. So everyone, my guest today was Nate, alien from the land down under, Australia. He's part of the, let's say, alternative metal group, Order of Owls, not the Court of Owls. Don't get confused with the Batman sort of variants, as we like to call it. So, but he is part of this nice group right here. These guys are kicking some major ass right there. So go check them out on the socials. And I guess, speaking of which, I guess, what socials and streaming platforms are you guys on so people can check your music out?
Yeah, man. So streaming platforms are basically anywhere, a lot of the majors. So basically anywhere the DistroKid pushes out to. So yeah, your Spotify's, Tidals, Deezer, all that type of stuff. Facebook, we have a profile on there, and Instagram, SoundCloud, Bandcamp, BandLab. Yeah, if you put in Order of Owls band into your search engine of preference, we should pop up. Say hello. Say we suck. Say that we're good. I don't know. Say something. If you're up
say
for
anything
it.
At all. Let's take something. Yeah.
Just send a GIF of an owl. We have somebody on our Facebook page that does that literally to every single post that we put up. There's just a GIF after GIF of just owls. So
it sounds like a Harry Potter scenario. It's going to be a messenger owl before you know it.
It's just, I hope so. That'd be amazing.
We don't need those stinking emails. We got a messenger owl now. So
hell yeah, brother.
All right, that sounds good. So you heard from this guy right here. So Nate, thank you again so much again for coming on and sharing your story right there. You stay safe. Rock on. Stay tuned, y'all.
You stay fresh as fuck, my man.
Yeah.